The Roswell incident of 1947 marked a turning point in human history when for the first time the concept of UFO, unidentified flying object, was officially brought to light. From that moment on, the skies have never known a single day of peace in the imagination and debates of humankind. Strange objects from the heavens have become a subject that fills the world with curiosity, fear, and a relentless eagerness to uncover the truth hidden behind the mysterious veil of the universe. Among the thousands of reports of encounters with UFOs, there have been moments when it seemed as if we were just a breath away from the truth, from images captured on radar to sightings with the naked eye, and even incidents where UFOs were reportedly shot down. Yet the crucial point, the factor that makes every theory more vivid and spine-chilling, has almost always been absent. Who is piloting them? Who is the true master of these strange crafts? It is not the flying saucers themselves, but the presence of extraterrestrial beings that truly shakes the entire community of paranormal researchers. And whenever a clue related to them emerges, no matter how vague it is, enough to ignite curiosity and draw the attention of millions. Recently, a striking example was the case of two mysterious mummies unveiled during a sensational hearing at the Mexican Congress. However, most of the encounters recorded by humanity have only involved corpses from bodies left behind after UFO crashes to bizarre remains unearthed under inexplicable conditions. Yet not every contact has ended in the silence of death. On rare occasions, we have come face to face with them while they were still alive, intact, alert, and shrouded in mystery. There have been instances where humankind has not only seen, but even captured a creature from beyond Earth. So how did that strange and shocking encounter unfold? What has humanity learned from these living visitors from outer space? Don't take your eyes off the screen, for you're about to step into a story beyond what even imagination could foresee. In the early morning of January 13, 1996, an urgent alert was sent from the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, to the Brazilian government. They reported that radar had detected an unidentified flying object, UFO, appearing over the northeastern area of São Paulo state. Shortly afterward, the UFO was confirmed to have crashed on the outskirts of the city of Varginha in the state of Minas Gerais. This seemingly impossible event happened to be witnessed by Orina de Freitas and her husband Erico, a farming couple preparing to start a workday like any other. While Orina was cooking breakfast in their small kitchen, she suddenly heard a commotion outside. The livestock on their farm had become frantic, scattering wildly as if fleeing from the claws of some invisible monster. Drawn by the strange scene, Orina went to the window, and what she saw left her frozen in shock. A strange, massive object was hovering in the air. Despite her fear, she managed to stay calm enough to call her husband to witness it with her. According to their account, the object was about the size and shape of a school bus, but what truly sent chills down their spines was that it moved silently, as if gravity or the laws of physics no longer applied to it. Surrounding the craft was a thick white smoke that billowed continuously, as if it were experiencing some technical failure. In that tense atmosphere, a sequence of unimaginable events was about to begin, an encounter beyond imagination, and perhaps a warning from the other side of the universe. Just minutes after witnessing the UFO's silent landing at the foot of the distant mountain, the Freitas couple quickly realized they were not the only ones to observe this strange phenomenon. On the other side of the mountain, another witness, University professor Carlos de Sousa, who was driving along a nearby road, also unwittingly became part of this extraordinary event. Carlos recalled that as he was driving, he suddenly noticed a massive object flying about 300 to 400 meters above the ground. The object was shaped like a giant cigar, and its tail appeared to be severely damaged. Thick white smoke continuously poured out, filling the surrounding air. It gradually descended as if attempting an emergency landing. However, when it was only about 100 meters from the ground, the object suddenly lifted again, as if making a final effort to escape an inevitable crash. But that effort failed. After a moment of eerie silence, the UFO plunged freely to the ground, creating a light tremor that spread across the area. At that moment, Carlos didn't think he was witnessing a supernatural phenomenon. He believed it was a plane crash, an aviation emergency. With the spirit of someone ready to help, He immediately steered his car toward the site where the object had fallen, determined to rescue anyone who might need help. However, the scene at the crash site left him breathless with panic. The area was littered with strange metal debris unlike any aircraft parts he had ever seen. As soon as he stepped out of his car, a strong, pungent odor like ammonia hit him, making him nearly vomit. His eyes burned, tears streamed down his face, and Carlos was forced to cover his nose with his clothes just to get closer to the site. As he approached, he noticed that the debris resembled thin aluminum, very light and easy to bend. According to Carlos, it looked like the foil used to wrap roasted chicken. But the surprising thing was that when he crumpled a piece into a ball just a few seconds later, it would return to its original shape completely unaltered. While he was still bewildered, unable to make sense of what was happening, a convoy of Brazilian military trucks appeared. Armed soldiers stepped out, threatening him and ordering him to leave the site immediately. Carlos had no choice but to leave, filled with confusion and suspicion. In 1996, Carlos took part in a brief media interview and recounted in detail what he had seen. But after that single public appearance, he completely vanished from the public eye for 26 years. No trace, no explanation. Why, who, or what forced him into silence? If the story had ended there, it would have been swept into oblivion, like some outlandish tale from an anonymous witness. But fortunately, the truth is not so easily buried. 7 days later, on January 20th, 1996, another event stunned the entire São José de Varginha area. 3 young girls, Katia Xavier, 22, Lilian Silva, 16, and Valkyria Silva, 14, who lived near a local gym, had an encounter that defied explanation, one that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. That day, Lilian was walking ahead, followed by her 2 friends. As they passed an old wall, Lilian suddenly screamed in terror. In front of her was a creature that the human mind could scarcely comprehend. It was crouched by the wall, as if trying to hide from something. Katia and Valkyria immediately rushed over. All 3 of them saw the creature alive, present, and silently staring at them. According to their description, it had dark brown skin, smooth and shiny, with unusually large red eyes, no hair, no mouth, and 3 fleshy protrusions rising from the top of its head. Its face bore no expression at all, like a soulless entity. The creature's thin arms were clenched tightly between its legs, its posture frozen, but its gaze alert. Strangely, it also appeared frightened, seemingly panicked no less than the girls, an incredible reaction from a being thought to be extraterrestrial. The 3 girls ran home as fast as they could and recounted everything to Luisa Silva, the mother of Lilian and Valkyria. They were all certain that they had encountered an extraterrestrial being or something from another world. All 3 fell into a state of psychological trauma, plagued by nightmares, and too frightened to leave the house for many days. Later, Luisa persuaded her daughters to return to the scene to verify what had happened. But when they got back, the creature had disappeared without a trace. Even so, Luisa completely believed what her children had experienced. Why did Luisa believe what the girls said? Because she herself saw strange footprints on the ground, 3-toed prints unlike those of any known animal. Like Carlos, all 4 of them noticed a horrible stench. The girls described it as the smell of rotten eggs, while Luisa said it was worse than sulfur. That haunting smell lingered with her for 20 days afterward. To ease the distress, she even resorted to using alcohol to mask the odor that seemed to cling to her mind. Soon after news of the creature was reported, military trucks once again appeared. The people of Varginha began to realize that this was no ordinary event. For the first time, they witnessed the military showing up in large numbers, fully armed, as if preparing for battle, sealing off streets, and pointing their guns at anyone who dared approach the suspected area. That overwhelming and forceful presence left everyone deeply uneasy. As the army began searching the area where the girls had seen the strange creature, Sergeant Marco Cherry and his comrade Eric Lopes were assigned to patrol the vicinity. While on duty, a creature suddenly darted out in front of their vehicle, cutting across their path. Without hesitation, Marco leapt from the car, grabbed the creature with his bare hands, and rushed it to the hospital. But that was the moment that would change his life forever. The strange creature did not resist, but its body secreted a strange substance that seemed to have gotten on Marco. At first, he paid it no mind, but within days, his body began to react, fatigue, discomfort, and gradually his whole body emitted a foul odor like rotten eggs. Marco's health rapidly declined to the point where he had to be hospitalized. Dr. Cesario Lincoln-Fado, who directly treated Marco, recalled that the medical team conducted every possible test but could not determine the cause. Marco's immune system seemed to have been completely disabled. On February 10, 1996, at just 23 years old, Marco was transferred to intensive care, and only a few hours later he died. Although the official report listed the cause of death as sepsis and pneumonia, Marco's sister, Marta Tavares, said there were suspicious actions. Immediately after the doctor declared him dead, he insisted that Marco's body be buried as soon as possible to avoid an autopsy. This left the family and the townspeople deeply suspicious. Had Marco been infected by some kind of alien virus? The story became even more puzzling because Marco wasn't the only one on duty that day. The other was Eric Lopes. For many years afterward, no one could get in touch with him. Every interview request was refused, and he maintained absolute silence. It wasn't until a documentary film crew tracked him down through various channels that they received a cold response. If they didn't leave, they would be in trouble. That harsh reaction was like an unspoken confirmation that something very serious had happened that night, something that should never be revealed. Returning to January 20th, 1996, in reality, it wasn't just one alien creature that was captured. According to documents declassified later, a total of 2 beings were apprehended by the authorities. One was caught by Marco right on the road, while the second was discovered and captured by the local fire department on the morning before the girls saw the extraterrestrial being. That day, the fire department received a flood of calls from residents reporting that they had seen terrifying creatures around the city. At first, the firefighters thought they were dealing with a wild animal. But when they arrived, they saw a bizarre creature with dark brown skin, as if it had just crawled out of an oil drum, and enormous, glowing red eyes, a sight that surpassed anyone's imagination. After many tense hours of pursuit, the firefighters finally managed to capture the strange creature. Some of the personnel present at the scene recalled that the creature emitted a sound like a crying child, a strange noise that sent chills down the spine of anyone who heard it. The capture took place in the same area where the girls had spotted the alien being, and where Officer Marco had his fateful encounter. A family living nearby shared with the documentary crew of the moment of contact that just one night after the capture, they witnessed something inexplicable. As they stepped out of their house to collect a food delivery, they looked up at the sky and froze a giant silver-colored object, emitting a bright red glow, was hovering high above. It looked exactly like a flying saucer, silently spinning in the night as if searching for something. The object stayed there for about 15 minutes before vanishing into the void. Many believe that the captured creature had been the pilot of the cigar-shaped UFO, the one that had crashed earlier, and perhaps the massive flying saucer that appeared the following night was its comrade desperately trying to locate the missing crew member. But it was too late. The being had already been captured by humans. The question arises, what really happened to those 2 mysterious alien beings? What did witnesses from the military and hospitals share? And did UFO researchers uncover anything significant? James Fox, producer of the documentary The Moment of Contact, even revealed that there was an important detail he chose not to include in the film. This suggests that the incident was far deeper and more complex than the public has ever known. Let's summarize what has happened. So far, we have an unidentified UFO crash and 2 alien beings captured. One was apprehended by the fire department on January 20th, and the other was caught by Officer Marco that same night. To make it easier to distinguish them, let's temporarily refer to them as Being 1 and Being 2. Both were taken to different hospitals. Being 1 was transported to Humanitas Hospital, while Being 2 was taken to a local hospital in Virginia. Let's start with Being 2, the being that Marco came into direct contact with. According to those involved, after it was captured, the creature was in critical condition and did not survive past the next day. 26 years later, a radiologist who once worked at that hospital broke his silence. On the condition that his identity be concealed and his voice altered for safety, he shared what he had personally witnessed. According to him, on that fateful day, as many as 10 fully armed soldiers stood guard at the hospital. No one was allowed in or out. 2 soldiers and 2 officers entered the X-ray room carrying a black bag. They asked the doctor to X-ray the object inside without opening the bag. After the imaging was done, the military immediately retrieved. The results did not allow the doctor to view any of the images and simply said, "Thank you, your job is done, and please keep everything you've seen confidential for your own safety." The doctor clearly remembered the odor that emanated from the being inside the bag, an extremely pungent smell, like a mixture of ammonia and sulfur. That terrible stench not only made it hard for him to breathe for days, but it also lingered in the hospital long after the military left. The medical staff took a long time to eliminate the odor before the hospital could reopen. What's astonishing is that this doctor's testimony matched exactly with what Mrs. Lucia Silva, a local resident, had shared earlier, that she could smell that horrifying odor for many days and even had to use alcohol to clean out her nose. Although the two had never met, their descriptions were eerily similar. Could this merely be a coincidence? Or is it a link in a larger mystery that humanity has yet to muster the courage to face? Let's set aside the story of Being 2 for now. This time, let's explore what happened to Being 1, and you may find that things became even stranger. Being 1 was still alive when it was brought to the hospital, though, in an extremely weakened state. The military immediately ordered the doctors to perform emergency surgery. In the documentary, The Brazil UFO Crash, the Varginha Incident, a hospital security guard called the editor-in-chief of UFO magazine to share the extraordinary experience he could never forget. This soldier insisted he could not believe his own eyes because what lay on the stretcher was not human. It was an alien being, clearly and unmistakably so. While the doctors carried out the operation, he was assigned to guard the operating room. He didn't know whether the being was alive or dead, whether this was a medical procedure or an autopsy. All he saw was the doctors working with expressions of tension and fear, just like he felt at that moment. According to his account, the creature was about 1 meter tall, with shiny brown, greasy skin, large eyes, and claw-like hands. The stench it gave off was so unbearable that his superior expressed concern it might affect human health. After the surgery ended, he and his team were ordered to leave the area immediately. In the end, the doctors confirmed that the alien being had not survived. In the documentary Moment of Contact, a soldier nicknamed Military X also shared his unique experience during that 1996 mission. He recounted that he was ordered to escort a convoy of military vehicles from the base in Cacos to the city of Varginha. First, they went to the local hospital, then to Humanitas Hospital, where things became extraordinary. In a sealed room of the hospital, he witnessed with his own eyes a stainless steel box placed on a table. Inside was a creature certainly not human. The upper body of the being was covered, but its legs were exposed, and they looked nothing like those of a person. Dark, greasy skin, with toes shaped like a V. Strangely, this description perfectly matched what Mrs. Luisa Silva had said when she saw the strange footprints at the scene where Being 2 was captured. When they transported the being back to the military base, Military X was summoned into a senior officer's office. The officer looked him straight in the eye and asked, "What did you see?" Acting on instinct for self-preservation, he replied that he had only seen a man badly burned. The officer then stressed, "Never speak again of what you saw. Not a word, not a hint. This is top secret." However, the mystery didn't end there. The documentary producer revealed in an interview that during its treatment at the hospital, Being 1 attempted to communicate with 2 medical staff members, not through speech but via brainwaves. According to the account, there were actual exchanges that took place between them and the extraterrestrial being. However, this detail was never included in the documentary because the production team had not been able to persuade the 2 medical workers to testify on video, something essential to verify the information. And so what remains are fragments of mystery suspended between truth and hypothesis. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear: something far beyond human understanding occurred in Varginha, something the world can no longer afford to ignore. However, those passionate about UFO research may find additional verified information in the book, The Brazil UFO Crash: The Truth Behind the Real Crash and Surviving Extraterrestrials by Dr. Roger K. Lear. In Chapter 6 of the book, a medical worker referred to simply as M recounted to Dr. Lear a truly terrifying experience. During the surgery on the alien, a strange blue gas suddenly filled the operating room. No one knew what it was or where it came from. The nurses began to panic, banging on the door, begging to be let out. Meanwhile, the military outside ordered that the source of the gas be identified immediately. Then came the chilling truth: the gas was emanating from the very body of the creature lying on the operating table. In utter confusion, M slowly approached it, and when his eyes met the being's blazing red gaze like two whirling liquid vortexes, he fell into a trance-like state. Instantly, a stream of unfamiliar information flooded into his mind, leaving him dizzy in pain and nauseated. The headache lingered for over 2 weeks, as if his mind had been forced to absorb something beyond its limits. So what did the creature say in that strange communication? M revealed that the being species felt sorrow for humankind. Why? Because according to them, humans possess enormous potential, the ability to achieve great things no less than any extraterrestrial species. But sadly, we have never truly reached that potential. We become preoccupied with trivial matters and forget the extraordinary power that lies dormant within us. Although much information was poured into his mind during that encounter, M refused to disclose more. He only said that the being died within 24 hours of being brought to Humanitas Hospital, but in his view it was a death the being chose for itself, not one caused by humans. Notably, M's account matched perfectly with those of other witnesses, including the guard and the figure known as Military X. But after the being died, what happened to its body? Military X recounted that he was told the body had been taken to the Reserve Officer Training School (SPC) in the city of Campinas. What was strange was that instead of keeping it at a military base, where security was at its highest, the body was transferred to a military school with a lower level of protection. What hidden reason lay behind this puzzling decision? According to rumors within the Brazilian military, all the UFO debris along with the bodies of the extraterrestrial beings were secretly handed over to the US military. The documentary Moment of Contact also mentions this detail. An air traffic controller, J. Manuel Fernandez, recounted that a US Air Force transport plane landed in Campinas without official authorization from the Brazilian government. Afterward, 2 helicopters flew to Varginha, collected the unidentified objects, and returned to Campinas before the US plane departed. Jay confirmed that it was the US that led the operation, while Brazil merely provided ground support. All these details inevitably bring to mind the 1947 Roswell incident. In comparison, the Varginha case is no less significant. It had a massive impact, numerous credible witnesses, and notably the government's cover-up effort was as sophisticated as what the US did with Roswell. The Brazilian military held a perfunctory press conference offering explanations along the lines of, "There is nothing unusual, everything is under control." But under pressure from the media and the public, they were eventually forced to release a final investigation report. And astonishingly, in that report, the 3 girls who had encountered the extraterrestrial being were told that what they actually saw was just a homeless man named Mourinho. This man supposedly suffered from mental illness and was covered in mud from the rain, leading to the mistaken identity. As for the 2 extraterrestrial beings taken to the hospital that day, they were said to have been nothing more than a short-statured couple receiving cardiac support devices. That final explanation sounds painfully forced. Was it the truth or merely a way to erase the truth? The story of Varginha remains one of the great unsolved mysteries, but with each small piece of the puzzle revealed, the world is increasingly confronted with a bigger question. Are we truly alone in this universe? Can you believe it? A simple surgery requiring the entire hospital to be sealed off. That's not just unusual. It gives the sense that something far greater was being hidden. At the same time, the military also launched an investigation into the death of military police officer Marco. According to the official report, Marco was not on patrol that day and died from an infection caused by a cyst on his arm. Yet this explanation did nothing to account for why so many military vehicles were seen flooding the streets. Later, they added that it was merely a military exercise near the hospital area. However, these explanations failed to convince the public, the very people who had witnessed the events firsthand. The 3 girls who had encountered the extraterrestrial being immediately rejected the claim that they had merely seen a mud-covered homeless man. They insisted that the strange appearance and terrifying eyes they saw could not possibly have belonged to a human. They were not alone. A series of UFO investigators, including renowned civilian researcher Vittorio Pini, launched inquiries and issued conclusions that refuted the military's explanations on multiple fronts. As news of the incident spread, the renowned American psychologist John Eimer traveled to Brazil in November 1996 to personally meet two of the three girls, Lilian Silva, 16 years old, and Valkyria Silva, 14 years old. After many hours of conversation, he gathered their full testimonies as well as illustrated drawings depicting the extraterrestrial being they had seen. After a thorough verification process, he concluded that the girls were not lying. And remember, this was not an unknown researcher. John was the head of the Department of Psychiatry at Harvard Medical School and a Pulitzer Prize winner, one of the most prestigious awards in the field of media. At first, he thought the witnesses might have psychological issues. But after speaking with hundreds of other witnesses, he found that they were all ordinary, clear-minded people with no signs of mental disorder. From that point, he dedicated much of his life to studying the UFO phenomenon. Previously, he had played a key role in investigating the UFO event in Zimbabwe, and his illustrious career proved that he had no need for false fame. In 1996, much of the public still placed great trust in the government and military, and people were generally cautious about information related to UFOs. As a result, most of the brave witnesses who dared to speak up became targets of attack and ridicule as if they were liars, attention seekers, or victims of delusion. But the reality was entirely different. Among the three girls, Katia Xavier, who was 22 years old and pregnant at the time, was rumored to be carrying an alien hybrid child. This rumor led to the collapse of her marriage, and she fell into severe depression. Lilian, then just 16, was so ostracized by her friends that she had to drop out of school. As for Valkyria, the 14-year-old sank into psychological distress and lived in seclusion for a long time. Even bystanders were deeply affected. Eric Lopez, police officer, Marco's patrol partner, no longer dared to speak up or engage with the media. Professor Carlos de Souza, the first person to discover the UFO crash, went from being a respected scientist to the center of mockery, to the point that he developed psychological issues after receiving threats from the authorities. And he was not the only one. Many others found themselves in similar situations. They simply happened to be in the right place at the right time, but had no choice in what they witnessed. So do extraterrestrials really exist? That is something you must sense for yourself. With all the evidence, testimonies, and documents that have been made public, we have enough material to evaluate and reflect upon. The world has changed. People are increasingly open to supernatural phenomena. They no longer rush to judge, but instead begin to analyze, explore, and accept things that were once dismissed as nonsense. It is very possible that in the not-so-distant future, more incidents like Virginia or Roswell will come to light. This event, even today, continues to be followed and analyzed by many scholars and researchers. You can easily find more information about it on the internet because this is a gripping, mysterious story that certainly won't disappoint you. Due to limited time, we'll end today's video here. Thank you for always accompanying us, listening, and supporting us. See you in the next videos where we will continue to explore the marvelous mysteries of the universe. Wishing you a peaceful and inspiring day with your family.